Franchising is a scam. Do it yourself. F off. They're smoking fentanyl. This is like throwing money down the toilet. Yep, those are all real comments we've gotten online. So today we're asking the question out loud, is franchising a scam? In this episode of the Sidekick Life, we go straight at the headlines, the hot takes, and common misconceptions within franchising. We break down why some franchisees fail and what the data actually says. Spoiler, the system isn't broken, but how people use the system often is. If you've ever wondered whether franchising is a smart move or just an overhyped way to buy yourself a job, we've got the answers. Let's get into it.
Trying to reach my goals, got no time for mistakes. Yeah, I'm standing on business, need a big safe. Suited up, got the blueprint in the briefcase. It's go time on the grind, these are big stakes.
Broadcasting from the Franchise Sidekick Studio, welcome to the Sidekick Life. Get ready for stories of passion, problem solvings, and success from those living life on their terms. Okay, as you heard, today we're talking about, is franchising a scam? Now, you already know that Tyler and I are franchise guys, and so I can imagine you're sitting there thinking, well, you guys are biased, you're going to support franchising. But here's really what we're going to do. We're going to provide facts and numbers and compelling arguments about franchising and let you make your own opinion. We, of course, have our own opinion, but you obviously have some pretty strong opinions, as we've seen in some of our social media ads. So Tyler, let's talk a little bit about what some of the people that see our ads think about franchising.
Well, the internet trolls on full force here because the word scam has came up a couple of times in our ads and in our posts. These are my favorite comments from the, what do they call them? Keyboard warriors?
Yeah, there you go. Keyboard warriors.
All right, so here they are. This is kick it off. This is like throwing money down the toilet. Scam in big capitals. Do it yourself, F off.
Oh, I do it myself.
They're smoking fentanyl. That's a crazy one. They look like Wolverine, referring to you, which is like, that's a good thing, right?
I had more of a beard in the winter.
Okay. What, Hugh Jackman? Yeah, Hugh Jackman. That's a good thing. It's cheaper to do it yourself. And my morning dose of clickbait. Those are some of my favorites over the last probably couple months.
Yeah. So. Well, I know you come in laughing every few days, just talking about another funny keyboard.
Yeah. Keyboard
comment. Anyway, so obviously it is a polarizing topic, right? People want to know, if I buy into something, why is it worth my time?
Yeah.
Why is it that the franchisor sometimes seems like they're doing better than the franchisees? All things that we want to dive into. I think the most important thing that we start with is if you inherently believe in business. If you don't believe in business, you're on the wrong show anyway. Right? We believe in business. We think it's the most unfair wealth creator that's ever existed. So as long as you believe in business, let's compare business models. Let's compare franchising to independent business. So I know we've got some stats on that. Tyler, why don't you dive in? What does a franchise business look like compared to an independent business?
Well, let's start with independent businesses. And we love business, but they also will fail sometimes.
Yeah.
In fact, they fail at a pretty high rate. Like it's hard to own a business. So here are some stats. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 20% of new small businesses fail within 1 year. 50% fail within 5 years, and 65% fail within 10 years. Running a business is hard. We believe franchising is a better model. Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, and we need to be clear. That's independent businesses.
Independent.
Yeah, so franchising, it's really polarizing within the franchise industry, because when people like to come out and say franchising succeeds at 85 or 90%, they actually get a lot of crap online, because I don't think there's ever been a really great study done to understand it. Yeah. So we don't have the specific study that says franchising is at this level of success rate, but we have a whole bunch of signs that point in that direction. So I want to talk a little bit about those signs, right? The first is that the SBA loan default rate. Obviously, the SBA keeps very specific track of their loans and what types of businesses they loan against. There is a 30% lower franchise default rate than independent business, right? So just inherently right there, the money that is being used to open these businesses, the SBA tells us that franchises do better. Also, there are 4,000 franchise brands out there, right? Now, I know I think there's something like 300 new ones that are introduced every year, 300 that maybe fail and they're no longer franchisors. But inherently, when you have 4,000 franchisors, 800,000 franchise businesses open in America. And I think something like, let me make sure I get this right, 800 billion annually devoted to the US GDP. It's kind of hard to say that's a scam.
100%. And one opens every 8 minutes in America, which is the craziest stat. I mean, every 8 minutes there's a location of a franchise opening in America.
Yeah. So obviously, it's not a scam. I think the reason that sometimes people say it's a scam is because they know somebody that didn't have success. And instead of that person saying, I had something to do with it failing, it was somebody else's fault.
Right.
And of course, franchising has failures just like everybody else. But there's also a very credible industry inside franchising, Fran data, that said that 85% of franchise businesses are still open after 5 years. I don't know what they used to pull that data, but I know that they are highly respected. Anyway, so there's just lots of things that are pointing in the right direction. And the one thing I will tell you too is every year, the franchise brands that we work with, they have to file an FDD and they have to submit it to us. If there was ever a franchise brand that had, what some people are saying, 50% closure rate or whatever within franchising, if there was ever anything near that, that franchise would no longer exist.
No.
It would be in litigation. Nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole. Franchisees would be running like crazy from it. There have been brands like that within franchising before, but it is not the norm. It is the exception.
Right. And that brings up a good point. All franchises aren't created the same. I think that we're grouping everything in one big master group of franchises, but that they're all different, right? You have some very successful franchise brands, some not so much. You got people in the middle, and that's why advisors are so important to find those. But just understand that we're grouping this into one big group, but they're not all created the same for sure.
100%. We have an information problem, I think, in franchising, meaning when somebody goes to buy a franchise on their own, directly looking at that brand, they don't know the things to look at or the people to talk to get the real story. So usually they're going to be speaking to somebody who is financially motivated to sell them that franchise brand. And that's not always the best place to get information. That's why we exist. That's why people like us exist. And that's why we've spent so much time and money building technology, collecting the information that we need to, talking to former franchisees to be sure we have the right story.
Yeah,
it's really
100%.
important. It's our purpose. I'm getting a little fired up. You can already tell. It's because this is what we spend all hours of every day working towards, is how do we get more information in people's hands to make informed decisions?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But anyway, let's dive into a couple of the questions that we have heard about franchising over the years and just talk about them. Number one, the franchisor makes money even when the franchisee doesn't. What's your feeling on that?
I mean, this one's tough, right? Like they're making that's a hard question because they're making money. Not all franchisors make money. In fact, they spend a lot of money.
Right.
I think the break even for a franchisor is like 100 locations, right? Or something like that.
It depends, but something like that.
Something like that. So it's very hard for the franchisor to make money if the franchisees aren't making money.
You said exactly what I had here. The franchisor will make revenue. It doesn't mean that they're making money, right? Whether you make $100,000 out of your franchise business or $10 million, there's going to be a portion of that that's going to go back to the franchisor. That is the franchisor's revenue. That's how they exist. It doesn't mean that covers their expenses. It doesn't mean that it turns a profit for them. Just like your franchise business, the franchisor had to spend a number of years building systems and sustainability.
Yep.
And that is oftentimes they have no revenue when they first start, just like your franchise business may have no revenue or little revenue in the beginning. So their business is no different, right? You still make revenue as a franchisee from your customers, but you may not make a profit. Your franchisor is always going to have that revenue stream, but it doesn't mean necessarily they're making a profit. The good brands look at this as a partnership, right? Which doesn't always mean that they're going to somehow reduce your royalty or reduce what you pay them based on the performance of your location. Oftentimes, that revenue should be used at creating better support, better services, better brand recognition. And oftentimes, if I hear franchisees say, well, I'm not doing well, so the franchisor should just discount what I pay them. Well, okay, now how do we do that across the board? How do we take that formula and say, we're going to apply it to all franchisees? So this is definitely not true.
And ultimately, it's in the best interest, to summarize that, and you said it several times, the interest of the franchisor is for the franchisees to make money. I mean, that's ultimately what they want, because if they do want an exit down the road or sell that company, their franchisees have to make money. So it is in the best interest of the franchisor for the franchisees.
Well, and let's just look at it in practical applications. Let's say you've got franchisor A who is making money, but their franchisees are not. It's not a sustainable model. If they're looking for an exit, they're not going to go get an exit out of that, right? Anybody that is going to give them money to buy that franchise is going to do a significant amount of due diligence on how franchisees are doing. So this is very short-sighted, very short term, not going to make it if franchisees are not making money. Where if you go the other path and the franchisees are making money, now all of a sudden you can attract better partnerships, better PE, better resources, better everything else. Also over here on track A, if franchisees aren't making money, usually those franchisors are going to have a stigma around them, and their career in franchising could be over. People are not going to continue to follow that. So it is very much not the case that franchisors are going to be successful and franchisees are not. Okay, second question. You don't own your business in a franchise.
100% misinformation there. You own the business. And I think that's actually a problem for some franchisees because they get into it and they're like, oh, the franchisor is going to do all the work. This is your business. And the people, the franchisees who treat it as such are the ones who are going to be more successful always. This is your business. You can sell it outside of like a Chick-fil-A model or some of these random models. This is something that you can sell. It is an asset for you. You 100% are the owner.
Yeah, I was going to say no thanks, Chick-fil-A, because they're giving us a bad name because that one is a very unique franchise model. But I agree. You, of course, own the business. Why do you own the business? Well, when you go to the bank and they say you put your name on that loan, not the franchisor. When you hire somebody, you make that decision. You pay them. When revenue comes to into your franchise, it goes into your bank account. And you pay a royalty out of that, right? All of these things are true. Now, sometimes I think people like to move from the middle and take it all the way to this extreme of they say you don't own your business for a couple of reasons. One may be you have to follow rules.
Yeah.
I live in a neighborhood that has an HOA. I am not allowed to paint my house pink with white stripes. Why? Because my neighbors don't want that to be an eyesore and reduce their...
You tried it once too.
I did try it a couple of times.
Yeah.
But the same is true in franchising. If you and I own the same brand and we're in neighboring markets and I do a horrible job of customer service, of brand standards, of product control, and you do a wonderful job, well, your business inherently is going to be worth less because you're next to mine.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so there are rules that need to be followed around that. Also, a franchisor is going to approve who can buy your business, which sometimes people don't like. They say, if I have a buyer, why can't I just sell it to anybody? And the reality is that franchisor now has a 10-year relationship with the person you sell it to. And so think about it, if you put yourself in that franchisor's shoes and said, I now have to have a relationship with that person for 10 years, you're going to want to say in who that is. But on the reverse side of that, when you go to exit your business, you also probably have a built-in buying network
100%.
of dozens or hundreds of people that are going to make it a lot easier as well.
Yep. It is a partnership. It's 100% a partnership. Just like if you and I were partners in something, like it is a partnership and you should treat it as such, but that is your business. Like to your point, that money goes in your bank account. You dictate a lot of the rules, not all of them, almost all the rules though. So it is 100% your business.
Yeah. And I think you just need to be careful of those people that want to magnify the pieces of the business, like you have to follow a system or a buyer has to be approved, and take it all the way over here and say you don't own your business because they're just being extremists.
Yep.
Hey, Sidekicks, it's Ryan Zink here. I'll never forget the moment I opened my first franchise, helping my first customer, hiring my first employee, and cashing my first check. It wasn't just a business, it was the beginning of living life on my terms. When Tyler and I started Franchise Sidekick, we reimagined how people would find brands and succeed in franchise ownership. We're the fastest growing franchise advisory group in the country because we built a smarter, tech-driven system. Our approach has helped people just like you purchase over 10,000 franchise locations, and we've earned a 5-star rating on Google doing it. Now we're sharing exactly how we do it in a quick 20-minute webinar titled 10,000 Locations and Counting, the Franchise Buyer's Blueprint. If you're ready to explore a path to financial freedom and take control over your future, this is your first step. And did I mention our services are always 100% free? Click the link below to sign up now because you deserve to live life on your terms. Next one, you're buying a job. What do you say to that one?
There are certain franchise brands out there,
I agree.
and I haven't seen these questions, by the way, so this is all new to me. So this is a scenario where there are some franchise brands that it is like buying a job for a while, and in some circumstances for a long period of time. Most of them are not the case. Most of them are designed to scale up, have multiple territories, multiple locations. You can get a stick person or somebody to run your locations, and you can scale up, hopefully to sell someday. So with that said, you may have to begin it as a job. It may feel like it for a while, but then the goal is to scale, and our systems with franchising allows you to scale faster.
Yeah. Well, you just stole all my thunder because that's my exact answer.
Perfect.
It's true and false. It will feel like buying a job. I mean, if you're an owner operator in one location, it absolutely is buying a job. Right? You have to get in there. You're going to make hopefully you're going to make some money. It's going to be able to support your lifestyle, but you're going to be handcuffed to that business. What they need to think about is, how do I take my successful system that I have in one location and now scale?
Yeah.
That's the advantage of a franchise. You can open more territories. You could buy existing underperforming locations from other franchisees. But until you scale, I think it's always going to feel like a job. I am a big believer in, you probably shouldn't get into franchising unless you someday hope to scale, because I'm a believer that exit value is the most important financial event of your life. and you're not going to get a major exit value out of one location. You're going to get the exit value once you've replicated your systems, once you have a staff in place, and once you've pulled yourself out of some of the day-to-day.
Yeah. Now, there are exceptions, right? Like if you're buying a McDonald's, if you're buying a Dunkin' Donuts, if you're buying some of the very mature brands, obviously you're probably not going to be working in those locations very often. You're going to be overseeing the locations. That is probably top 7% of brands, 10% of brands. Most of the time, you're going to need to invest a lot of energy into the brands early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I don't think that money is always the piece that you need to think about when buying a job. Like, how much money am I going to make? What you just said there is time. It's very important. Mm-hmm. If you own 1, 2 McDonald's, you're probably still the person they're calling if the air condition breaks. Right? Yeah. You might be the person in there if the toilet overflows, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to feel a lot like having a job. But as soon as you scale from 2 to 10, all of a sudden you have enough resources and enough people in place that are going to do it all for you.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the cost of your time.
Okay.
This is something you used to say all the time, and I wholeheartedly believe it. But when you think about, is franchising a scam? Think about, can you do it yourself? I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Can I just go do this myself? You know what? If you want to open a company that just does paint, it paints homes, can you buy paint? Can you buy brushes? And can you buy a truck?
Sure.
Probably yes.
Yep.
Are you going to be able to buy the same marketing system that they have? Are you going to be able to buy the brand that CertaPro is definitely going to be a brand that people know over Ryan's Painting Services, right? That's very important. But I just listed a couple of brands. Tyler, answer this for me. How long would it take you to replicate the UPS store? All the logistics, how long would it take you to replicate?
Years.
Years? How many years?
5, 7 years, branding, technology, logistics, everything.
Yeah, I was going to say 10. I think, especially the logistics piece of it.
I'm smarter than
you are smarter than me. You do it faster. But 10 years easy to create anything like what the UPS store does. What about, how long would it take you to redevelop Smash My Trash?
I think it would take a couple of years to get the technology, the truck, that kind of stuff figured out, and then much longer to do the marketing, customer acquisition, contracts, branding, everything.
Yeah.
So
5 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. MD Hyperbaric.
3 to 5.
Yeah, right. And anyway, I could keep going down the list. Yep. I mean, we easily can see that opening a franchise is going to, at a minimum, take you 3 years to replicate, probably more like 10 in many cases. And you're never going to have the brand recognition that they do.
And you can replicate stuff. It doesn't mean it's done right. Like I could do some of that stuff shorter. I could open a parcel store, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the same thing. Like you got to figure out your CRM, like there's the marketing, customer acquisition, all those systems and things behind the scenes that you don't think about, those take so long to replicate. Because I've owned a lot of businesses, even small, I own restaurants and retail stores. It takes a long time to figure that stuff out. And then stuff breaks, it doesn't work. You got to reformulate. Like there's so many things to think about.
Yeah. And I did a video a long time ago, and it was just as simple of, are the franchise fees worth it? And I think if you write down your initial franchise fee, your royalty, you estimate revenue, you put a number on the left-hand side of the column. And then on the right hand, on the right hand side of the column, you write down all the things you get from that brand, right? So take UPS store, I'm going to get the brand, I'm going to get the logistics, I'm going to get the trucks, I'm going to get all these things. And you say, how much would it cost you to do that? Now just compare that number to what you're paying in your franchise fee and your royalty. And I would almost guarantee for any legitimate franchise brand, everything that you would have on the right-hand side would cost you significantly more to do on your own.
And so the whole premise of that is you're buying time. Just to summarize that, you're buying time. And this is something when I started to work with a lot of clients, there's a distinction that would happen with my higher level investors who have been successful. Mm-hmm. They'd come in, they'd have a couple exits, and they no longer cared if they could do it themselves. They're like, how do I save time? It was a major mind shift for me because I started to work with all these high level investors and they're like, I want to buy time. How do I get to 10 locations the fastest? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Different mindset.
To get to scale, to get to exit.
Yeah.
I'm an Orange Theory franchisee, and I look at the technology inside the proprietary equipment, the technology, and daily fun different workouts that they do that is branding to the customers there or the members. I don't know if I could ever do what they've done in their technology. I just don't have the scale. They've got 1,500 locations to create that technology. Yep. I can never do it. Okay, now let's play name that brand.
Okay.
Or do you know that brand? Do you know the sandwich shop Get Real? No. Do you know the sandwich shop Jimmy John's?
Yes.
Okay. How about the donut shop Sugared Edge?
No.
How about Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes.
How about the fitness center West O Fitness?
No.
How about Planet Fitness?
Yes.
How about the hair? Well, you maybe don't get your haircut as much as I do, but how about the haircut store Hairworks?
No.
Or Sports Clips?
Yes.
All right. So anyway, every one of those categories, the first brand was a local Omaha brand. And the second one was a national franchise. So when you fly home to Fort Collins, and if you had to open one of those, are you going to open, which ones are you going to open?
Something I recognize that has a recognizable brand name behind it. And
100%.
has systems in place.
I mean, obviously that was a stupid question because we all knew the answer, but it just goes to show, again, is franchising a scam? Go open a sandwich shop next to Jimmy John's and see what happens. Go open a donut shop next to Dunkin' Donuts or a fitness center next to Planet Fitness and see what happens.
And once again, it can be done. The scalability and the long-term exit value is going to take much longer to achieve. If you start a sandwich shop right now, even if you have the best product, the best marketing, it's going to take a significant amount of time to scale up to where you can go to location number 2, location number 3, and eventually sell. You're talking 10 plus years.
Of course. And I mean, we see all this thing, and I agree with it. Spend time on mastermind, spend time on your network. If I'm a Jimmy John's franchisee, I have access to, I don't know what it is, hundreds, maybe more than 1,000 other franchisees that I can tap into. And you better believe the ones that are doing the best are the ones that I'm picking up the phone and trying to get a hold of all the time. If I open Get Real, I have nobody to go to. Zero people to ask, how do I run a better Get Real? Because
you're not competing with your existing franchisees. Like that network has restricted territories, right? So you can call them, they are your mastermind. If you call your next door neighbors, your sandwich shop across the street or down the road, they're not going to help you at all. So that's the biggest part of it, that built-in mastermind, like you said.
Yep. Anyway, those were the main questions that I had. I don't think I have any others around franchising being a scam, but I hope that what we've been able to do is prove the point that are there legitimate questions that should be asked about franchising? 100%. Is franchising a scam? The answer is no. But if you have the wrong information or you're in the wrong situation, you're going to feel like you got scammed because you didn't have the right money, the right situation, the right time that you're putting into the business or anything else.
Yeah. And I'll look at, like, from our perspective, we worked with thousands of clients over the years. And I think the ones, most of them have been pretty successful, and the ones that maybe have not, or people that I know in the franchising space, they were mismatched potentially. They were mismatched with maybe the wrong brand, or they did their own research and they just didn't find the right brand, and they went down the path and they ended up signing a franchise agreement, and it was the wrong brand for them. So that mismatch is a big part of it. So just be cautious of that. If you're looking at franchise brands, find an expert, do your due diligence, because honestly, that is the biggest reason you're going to fail as a franchisee.
100%. That's the reason you may feel as if you got scammed. Franchising is not a scam. The statistics show it. The questions we answered show franchising works, and it's a major part of our U.S. GDP. If you're a franchisee and you're sitting there saying, I feel like I got scammed, then I think you really need to think back to, how did you find the brand? How did you learn about the brand? Who did you talk to about the brand? And I would encourage you, of course, to use an expert. That's why we exist. We exist to be the experts, to reduce people's risk and get them as much possible information about what it's really like to be a franchisee of that brand. And so they never come back and say, I feel like that wasn't for me because I didn't have the right information.
Yeah. And if you're a franchisee too, use those resources that are provided by you, by the ZOR, also by other franchisees in your system. Like, don't just mail it in. Like, look at what they're doing that are successful, because there's definitely franchisees that are successful in almost every system. What are they doing? And work with them. Try to find a way to be successful as a franchisee.
100%. Good. Anything else you want to say about it?
It's not a scam. Internet trolls, bring it. It's not a scam.
But please feel free to still provide all the internet feedback, because they're funny for us to look at and laugh about. Appreciate y'all being with us. If you're interested in franchising, you can find us at franchisesidekick.com. Thanks for joining us on the Sidekick Life, where we highlight true sidekicks, entrepreneurs who've got their customers' backs, solve real-world problems, and after helping enough people, get to live the life they've always dreamed of. We'll see you next time.